How this poor fisherman transformed the history of F1 racing. A 21-year-old racing driver to the boss of the most glamorous and expensive motorsport in the world at the age of 80. Well, that may sound like an impossible thing to you right now, but yet it is the truth. Bernie Ecclestone, the son of a fisherman, is the person that transformed the history of F1 racing. Welcome to Business Bang, everyone. In today's video, we are going to tell you how Bernie Ecclestone used his mastermind to change F1 racing and what's the true backstory of Formula One racing. So stay tuned to this video till the end to get all your answers. How did Bernie Ecclestone become the CEO of F1 racing? Ecclestone was born on October 28, 1930 in a small village in Suffolk called St. Peter, South Elmham. The village is 3 miles south of Bungay. He was the son of Sidney and Bertha Ecclestone. Sidney was a fisherman whose family moved to Norwich from Kent at the start of the 20th century to work in the painting business there. Ecclestone dropped out of school at the age of 16 and accepted a job at the local gas board on the advice of his father. During his side business of motorbike scrolling and part selling, he approached Les Crocker, the owner of Harcourt Motorcycles in Bexley Heath Shopping Center, about a job. Ecclestone quickly earned a reputation in the community as a savvy businessman who always maintained the most immaculate showroom in the area. Ecclestone's ambition grew quickly from there. First, he went across the street to Compton and Fuller, where he was turned down for a partnership. However, he was so convincing that Fred Compton couldn't say no to his offer. It was only a matter of time before Ecclestone's motorcycle sales surpassed Compton's car business. After a while, the business became very one-sided, but Ecclestone was able to persuade Compton's partner. Ecclestone then persuaded Compton to join the racing team. A former RAF base had been transformed into the modern-day Silverstone racetrack by motor enthusiasts in 1950. Ecclestone wanted to be involved in the sport not because he liked racing, but because he thought it would be good for business, and he was right. Compton and Ecclestone became well known throughout the south of England. Ecclestone began racing in the 500cc Formula 3 series in 1951 when he purchased a Cooper Mk5. When he crashed into Bill Whitehouse and ended up in a group of cars outside the track, it hurt his confidence. Ecclestone temporarily left racing after his accident to pursue several lucrative real estate investments. His car business in Bexley Heath grew steadily, and Ecclestone bought up nearby dealerships and turned them into his best showrooms in the area. Ecclestone returned to racing in 1957 as the manager of driver Stuart Lewis Evans, purchasing 2 chassis from the defunct Connaught F1 team. He continued to manage Lewis after he joined the Van Wall team until the 1958 Moroccan Grand Prix when his engine exploded, causing severe burns and his death 6 days later. Later, he became Joachim Rindt's manager and a partial owner of Rindt's Lotus Formula 2 team in 1970. Rindt died in a crash on his way to the 1970 World Championship at the Monza circuit, but the championship was awarded to him posthumously. Ecclestone made his mark in 1972 when he purchased Brabham from Ron Torrance for £100,000. With Frank Williams, Colin Chapman, Teddy Meyer, Ken Tyrrell, and Max Mosley, he founded the Formula One Constructors Association. The Brabham team achieved little during the 1972 season, but Ecclestone was looking ahead and promoted Gordon Murray to chief designer in 1973. The BT-42, with its triangular cross-section, was the first of a series of Ford-powered cars that Brabham would win several races between 1974 and 75. Despite the success of Murray's Ford-powered car, Ecclestone agreed to use Alfa Romeo's powerful but heavy flat 12 engine beginning with the 1976 season. This move was financially beneficial, but it pushed Brabham to the back of the field during the 1976 and 77 seasons. Ecclestone signed Austrian world champion Niki Lauda in 1978, who was drawn to Murray's radical BT-46 design. Ecclestone signed the up-and-coming Nelson Piquet near the end of the 1978 season and formed a close relationship with the driver. They worked well together until 1985, when Piquet was dissatisfied with the money Ecclestone offered him and left to join Williams. Murray, who had worked for Brabham, then left the company the following year to join McLaren, and Ecclestone purchased the team for $120,000 and later sold it for $5 million to a Swiss businessman. Ecclestone was appointed CEO of FOCA in 1978, with Max Mosley as his legal advisor. They were an unstoppable force and negotiated several issues with the FIA, including race television rights. The FIA's president, Jean-Marie Balestre, was Ecclestone's #1 adversary. Max and Bernie both despised Jean-Marie's way of life. He would travel in Rolls Royces, stay in presidential suites in the best hotels, and give his friends unlimited hospitality tickets. This enraged Ecclestone, and on top of that, Balestre gave European teams an advantage by prohibiting things like skirting on British cars. This started what became known as the FISA-FOCA War, and someone had to win. Balestre and Ecclestone were both trying to outwit each other during this war. He put his own money at risk several times and had to constantly persuade British teams to back him up. He threatened to boycott races and even had armed guards arrest Balestre in Spain, while Balestre banned British teams and fined them. Balestre simply had too much pride to tell others they were great, and Ecclestone was able to manipulate Balestre by exploiting one of his weaknesses, pride. Balestre was a conceited man who craved attention, and Ecclestone is well aware of this. Ecclestone would threaten to boycott races in France, knowing that this would cause Balestre embarrassment in front of his home country, resulting in him meeting Ecclestone's demands, even if only for one race. When Balestre tried to talk to the other British team owners about a deal, Ecclestone would quickly call them and get them to side with him again. Mosley and Ecclestone once checked into the same hotel at a critical point in the war and tracked Balestre's conversations, discovering that he was negotiating with Lotus boss Colin Chapman. Recognizing that Chapman would persuade the other British owners to support Balestre, Ecclestone quickly called Chapman and persuaded him to stay on his side, and it worked. These dirty tricks were common on both sides. Ecclestone had a mantra of act now, threaten later. However, this resulted in everyone taking Ecclestone seriously. Another man who helped him was King Juan Carlos, who permitted him to take over the circuit from Balestre in the 1980 Jarama Grand Prix in Spain. Because of these personal relationships, Ecclestone was able to threaten that the race would be boycotted. Ecclestone could bluff with incredible skill at times. Balestre said that the race wouldn't count toward the championship, but Ecclestone told the teams to go anyway because he would pay for it. He even used tires from his warehouse because sponsor Goodyear wouldn't give them. After all, the race wasn't legal. In the end, Ecclestone won. This took the form of the Concord Agreement, in which the FIA agreed to more evenly distributed funds and technological regulation changes. The teams agreed to compete in every race of the World Championship, and the FOCA teams agreed to split travel expenses evenly among all teams that earned World Championship points. The real result of the Concord Agreement was the addition of Ecclestone and Mosley to the FIA committee, which allowed Formula One's commercial aspects to grow significantly in the late 1980s. The FIA retained control of the rules and regulations, while Ecclestone oversaw the majority. It's also worth noting that Ecclestone made many other team bosses extremely wealthy at the same time. Ecclestone had secured his ownership of Formula One, but as we all know and love, the controversies didn't end there. Every season, there are a lot of political issues, and who is the man everyone looks to for answers? Ecclestone thrives on this, claiming that politics are good for the sport because they generate press and larger viewerships, which leads to more money. The history of F1 and everything a new fan needs to know about F1 racing. Although Formula One has been around for a relatively short period in comparison to other sports such as football, it remains one of the most popular motorsports, possibly one of the highest global races for open-wheel racing vehicles. The Formula One World Championship, previously known as the World Drivers' Championship, has long set the standard for automobile racing around the world. The modern F1 season began in 1946, and the sport is said to have evolved from the European Grand Prix Championships of the 1920s and 1930s. The term Formula refers to the various sets of regulations and standards that all cars competing in Formula One must follow. The FIA, the body that governs all motorsports, has made several changes to the original pre-World War II regulations since the first edition of the F1 World Championship. The initial rules were intended to achieve a balance between supercharged and naturally aspirated vehicles. However, some recent changes to the regulations specify specific dimensions and weight limits for Formula One automobiles. Traditionally, a Formula One vehicle must have only 4 wheels, with minimal spacing between the wheels and the rear and front bodywork. So what exactly is the Formula One World Championship? A Formula One season typically consists of a series of Grand Prix races. The races are typically held on circuits built exclusively for this purpose or on closed public roads in 20 countries. And what's the history of Formula One competitions? Giuseppe Farina won the inaugural Formula One World Championship race, narrowly defeating teammate Juan Manuel Fangio. However, in the 1950s, Fangio won the championship 5 times, 4 of them consecutively, a record that stood for further than 4 decades before being broken by Michael Schumacher, who won this same championship 6 times in 2003. Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton went on to set a record for the most World Championship wins with 7. Stirling Moss of the United Kingdom was at the forefront of the sport, regularly competing between 1955 and 1961. Despite failing to win the world title, he finished second 4 times and third 3 times. He was widely regarded as the greatest driver who never won a world title. Out of the 770 drivers competing in the Grand Prix, 34 have won the World Championship as of the recently concluded 2021 season, with Max Verstappen currently holding the title. It's also worth noting that drivers from the United Kingdom have won the most championships. So now we know much about F1 racing, but what about its engine, which is the core? How does an F1 engine work exactly? A modern F1 engine is no longer referred to as such. Instead, it is referred to as a power unit. This is because it is a hybrid. It is powered by an energy recovery system and has a petrol internal engine and electric motors. When they were first introduced in 2014, they were chastised for their lack of noise in comparison to the previous generation's ear-rattling V8 and V10 monsters, but these are some of the most efficient and most powerful power units in Grand Prix history. The combined power output of the gas and electric elements is around 1,000 bhp, which is significantly more than a standard road car. The gas engine revs to 15,000 RPM, which is significantly higher than a road car as well. All of this means that an F1 car can accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 2.6 seconds and top out at around 230 miles per hour, depending on the amount of drag it is running. In 2006, BAR hit 246.9 miles per hour on the Bonneville Salt Flats after removing as much drag as possible from its car. The engine is a 1.6-liter turbo V6 4-stroke. It is built to strict dimensions and material constraints, with cylinders arranged in a 90-degree V configuration and 2 inlet and exhaust valves per cylinder. A compressor is used by the turbocharger to pressurize the engine. It is powered by airflow from the car's exhaust, which is routed through a turbine connected to the outlet system. Those who know about engines know that the compression ratio for each cylinder can't be higher than 18, that the fuel pressure in the injectors can't be higher than 500 bar G, and that the fuel mass flow can't be more than 100 kilograms per hour, decreasing as the engine speed goes down. That fuel mass flow is critical because it means that the amount of gas going into the engine is limited, limiting the revs and power that can be produced and encouraging teams to design more efficient engines. The cars run on fuel composed of compounds commonly found in commercial fuels with no power-enhancing chemical compounds. The cars reportedly consume around 135 liters of fuel during a race, which is a third less than they did with the older, thirstier V8s. To provide additional power, the ERS captures energy from the brakes and exhaust and transforms it into electricity that can either be used immediately to drive the electric motors or stored in a battery for later use. The MGUK, or Motor Generator Unit Kinetic, is an electric motor connected to the crankshaft of the engine. In a regenerative mode, it functions as a generator, slowing the car via engine braking and producing electricity to recharge the battery. In drive mode, it transforms into a motor, directing electricity to the wheels for increased acceleration. The system can only generate a certain amount of energy per lap, roughly 33 seconds of maximum power boost, but it can store twice that amount, allowing a team to be strategic and save and use energy at different times. The MGUH, or Motor Generator Unit Heat, is more complicated and is used in conjunction with the turbo, which works by spinning a turbine that pressurizes the engine using exhaust gases. As a generator, the MGUH provides resistance to the turbo spin, preventing the turbo from producing too much boost at high power and converting that energy into electricity that is stored by the battery. It is used as a motor to keep the turbo rotating when the driver's not pressing the accelerator, reducing turbo lag and smoothing power delivery. This is more efficient than the alternatives that use fuel. Importantly, the electricity generated by the MGUH can be used directly to power the MGUK, adding to the 33-second maximum that can be used from stored energy each lap. That means the longer the teams can use their electric power boost, the more electricity they can generate from the MGUH. The entire system, including all parts and accessories, must weigh no more than 150 kilograms, with the storage component accounting for 20 to 25 kilograms of that total. The MGUK has a maximum power output of 120 kilowatts, which equates to about 160 bhp. To prevent electrically powered superstarts, its use at the start of the race is limited until the car reaches 100 kilometers an hour. The driver and the onboard computer hold the power. Teams create engine maps that are set up to deliver electric power in various ways, and drivers simply choose among them and let the car do the rest. How successful is F1 racing now? Since Formula One's inception in 1950, F1 vehicles have undergone a series of technological advancements. The first major technological advancement was the introduction of mid-car engines, which Jack Brabham used to win the World Championship in 1959, 1960, and 1966. This prompted other competitors in the tournament to switch to mid-engine vehicles as well. The traditional space frame design was replaced by an aluminum sheet monocoque chassis. Since the introduction of mid-engine cars, these modifications have proven to be a tremendous technological breakthrough. However, at a much later time, aerodynamic downforce gradually gained importance in car design. This breakthrough in the late 1970s provided enormous downforce and substantially increased racing car cornering speeds. Researchers used statistical modeling to examine 8 seasons of Formula One from 2012 to 2019, during which time Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes were proving to be a near-perfect recipe for world championship success. Their findings, published in the journal Applied Economics, show that long-held beliefs about the impact of a driver, their team, as well as their car on F1 racing success are not supported by the data. There is a long-held belief, the so-called 80-20 rule in F1, that the car or team are responsible for 80% of race success, while the driver's skill accounts for only 20%, said lead author Duane Rockerby of the University of Lethbridge in a statement. What we discover, however, is that the input of the car and team has been greatly overestimated. The F1 race team and car were found to have a 20% influence on success, while the driver had a 15% influence. The way a driver interacts with their team was discovered to have the greatest influence on F1 success, with an influence of around 30 to 40%. According to the researchers, this demonstrates that drivers' influence extends beyond the racetrack and contributes to the development of better race cars and strategies. The study also looked at the money and the millions spent by F1 racing teams to see if money was truly king when it came to improving rank finishes. The amount, however, varies from season to season, depending on budgets and caps. And data shows that spending big doesn't always guarantee success if increasing a driver's salary comes at a cost elsewhere. According to sources, the conclusions are evidenced by the lived success of F1 drivers, as drivers who move early in their careers to big-name teams with the best cars, most extensive support, and largest budgets tend to have a better shot at the World Championships. Formula One is still among the most popular and prestigious car racing series in the world, and it has evolved and continues to grow at a rapid pace over the years. And that brings us to the end of our video. Please feel free to let us know what you think about this video, and if you liked it, then please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content.